and welcome back or welcome to my channel. Today I'm finally going to be talking about Onyx Storm. I got a nice normal copy, no sprayed edges for me. I couldn't care less about sprayed edges because it just sits on my bookshelf like this anyway, and then I can't see them, and you can't really see them while you're writing. It's just like a massive kind of grey. Like each to their own, but like I'm good. I'll just save a couple of pounds and buy like the normal version. I will not fall for the capitalist agenda. I think it's like maybe fair enough if it's a really cool, really fancy edition with like a different cover, like some of the like cool fairy loot ones that are really specific, but like just a normal cover that's pretty much exactly the same except maybe with like different coloured letters and then like black page edges with like a dragon on it. There's a dragon on the front, I'm fine, and actually I like the white letters instead of the gold, so that's my take on that. What a crazy release. It looked like it was a bit mental. Also not really here for that. I pre-ordered this but like paid for second class shipping, and like everyone was getting it on the Tuesday and I'd managed to like finish Addie LaRue on the Monday, so I was ready for Tuesday, and then like my book didn't even come until like Wednesday. So there's a lesson: if you want your pre-order to arrive on the day that it's released, pay for first class shipping and don't be a cheapskate like me. If you don't, pre-order doesn't guarantee that you get it on release day. I also feel for people whose orders were like cancelled by Amazon for some reason. Bit of a shit show. Can't believe how well this book sold in its first week. Did it not sell better than like anything has since Harry Potter or something? The front of this book, it says like it's the new Harry Potter and Hunger Games. Yeah, there's a lot of hype about this book, but I think the quality is like way below both of those. Personally, I know a lot of people love it, but I think it's a bit far to say that it's the next Harry Potter. I don't think it has the cultural impact that Harry Potter or the Hunger Games has. I feel like everyone knows what they are, whereas like only really like the book girlies know about Fourth Wing. The general public, like, I don't think they would get any references to Fourth Wing. But never say never. If she pulls out the bag and impresses people with book 4 and book 5, then maybe it will have more long-term appeal, but we shall see. I'm kind of not expecting that much from it. Let's get into my thoughts about the actual book. So I had fun, I enjoyed the book, and I've kind of let go of being super critical of this series. I think it's kind of important to review books like within context. Like if you compare this book to like Jane Eyre or like some classic or a contemporary literary novel, it's not going to stack up. Like it's not meant to be that good. It's meant to be a little bit trashy, quite action packed. It takes a lot of inspiration from other series such as like Sarah J Maas's series, other fantasy romance series, other things involving dragons. I've said before that these books are kind of like the Marvel film of books. Like you kind of go and you see and it's really action packed and exciting, and then you go home and you kind of don't think about it afterwards because it doesn't hold like a lot of really compelling thoughts about humanity. It's just kind of a fun time. I feel like reading these books I'm like watching a TV show, and like she's really good at starting and ending chapters with cliffhangers and being really exciting so that you're like intrigued to read on. It's a bit like watching a TV series where you're like, oh, just one more episode, I need to find out what happens. But it's not like a TV show that makes a lot of like emotional impact on me. It's like, you know, it's fun time while you're watching it, and then it ends, and then you're like, oh, that was good, when's the next one? It's not till next year, okay. And then like you kind of stop thinking about it in between. That's how I feel about these books. So like I did really enjoy it and have fun. Read it in like a week. I like sat for hours each evening and like read it for like 3 or 4 hours so I could get through it quite quickly. I think that like helps my enjoyment because I read Fourth Wing a little bit too slowly and I was like getting a little bit like fatigued of it, whereas Iron Flame and this one read them really fast, purposefully, and that helped the enjoyment. But quality wise, it was just okay. It's like a McDonald's, like you look forward to it and it's like really enjoyable while you have it, but like, is it like a gourmet meal? No, it's just fast food. And fast food can be really tasty, but it's also like not that sustainable nutritionally, and it's not good if you have it like every day. So I like to read a book like this and then go and read something else. Like I moved on to Tender as the Flesh after this. a very different reading experience. Had a lot more thought about that one. And then I'll read a few more books like that make me think a lot, and then I'll come back and read something that's like a little bit more trashy. And I'm not saying it's trash, I'm just saying it's a little bit trashy. I think we've got a lot of reviews online that are like, you know, the biggest fans ever and they're super excited about it, or we've got like haters that are reading it just to do a rant review and are coming on and moaning because it's, you know, it's not literary and it's not this and it's not that. And like, that's okay. I think it's fine to have those kind of reviews. I think it helps me like know what kind of book I want to read and if this is like what I'm in the mood for. But you know, I'm going to judge it based on, it's supposed to be very light fantasy, it's supposed to be romantasy, it's supposed to be exciting and a bit of fun, and I think it achieved those. But I think there's some parts of the book that could be better. As I said in my last review for Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, some of the characters, in fact most of the characters, lack a lot of development. Like I said, Riddick's kind of like a funny guy, and Rhiannon is kind of like good at stuff, and she likes her family, and Sawyer lost his foot and he likes Jacinia and he repeated first year, and like that's it. And Brennan's a healer and he's a brother and he's in the rebellion. Couldn't tell you any of his personality traits. Mira, she's kind of like tough and she's like, oh, I'm gonna punch you in the face, and she's like good at her job and has a dragon, and she's her sister, and that's it. And that's kind of the extent of the characterization in this novel. Violet and Xaden have a little bit more. Xaden's is quite interesting in this book because he's Venin and he's kind of dealing with that, grappling with that. Sawyer's character gets a little bit more interesting as we see him trying to come to terms with the loss of his leg and trying to create adaptations and overcome that adversity. We also see a little bit more of Riddick and see a bit more of his character and how he cares about Violet, and he goes with her to the Isle Kingdoms, and you know, he's very concerned for her when she shares the news about Xaden, so we see more of him. We don't see much of Rhiannon because she's in Go, she stays behind, therefore we don't get any more development for her. We do get a few chapters from other people's point of view. We get one from Rhiannon and one from Imogen during the final battle, as well as like our usual one Xaden chapter. I think that was just to show where the action was. I don't feel like I learned that much more about Rhiannon. It did help us see like the dynamic between other people and their dragons, which I thought was quite cool. And we got to see more of like Imogen's relationship with her friend Quinn, just as Quinn dies. So, you know, it's like, oh cool, oh sad. I guess that has emotional impact a little bit now. Would have had more impact if I'd known more about Quinn and Imogen from like earlier on in the books, or even in this book. I thought Quinn was like her girlfriend, but she's just her friend and actually had a boyfriend. So clearly I was confused about that and was wrong. So yeah, R.I.P. Quinn, I guess. And we learn that Imogen likes Garrick. Like, okay. Don't think we need another random love story in here because we're just focused on Violet and Xaden. Wonder how that'll work in the next book. I don't really care though. And as for other characters, lots of people complained that there was lots of names, lots of new characters that they couldn't remember from Iron Flame. A lot of them were in Iron Flame. I just read Iron Flame like 2 months ago, so it was quite fresh in my mind, so I think I was in good standing for this book. I wasn't that confused. I think I was confused about who Llewellyn was. There's another guy with a name beginning with L who I thought Llewellyn was. They're just like on that panel that Xaden talks to, right? I don't care. This is the thing, like, none of these characters are that distinct. Even some of the professors I'm forgetting, like Panchek kind of betrayed them and was working with Venin at the end, and I was like, which one is Panchek again? What does he teach again? Like, it's book 3, the end of book 3. I should be able to remember who Colonel Panchek is. He's been in it from the start. I don't care. I don't know who he is. It didn't remove like that much liking for me as a book because I just kind of like waved past it. I did forget who Drake was. Like Drake is Kat's cousin, and he goes to the Isle Kingdoms with them, and like he was introduced as her cousin, but then things happened and then I forgot that, so I was just like, who is this Drake guy again, and like what's his relevance? We also had Traeger. Was Traeger in Iron Flame? I don't remember Traeger being in Iron Flame or doing anything of significance. he was just here in Onyx Storm. Kat liked him. That was good because she was moving on from Xaden. And then he dies. And I feel like it was quite a good death. Like, you know, it was a good twist, and it kind of was an obvious twist that would happen in this luck kind of challenge. And it had tension because they couldn't react to it in the moment, right? And I think it's always sad with these deaths where the griffin or the dragon die as well. Seeing the griffin die, that was really sad. R.I.P. I can't remember the griffin's name, but R.I.P. I didn't really care personally about Traeger. If he hadn't been like having a romance with Kat, I don't think it would have mattered at all. So yeah, I feel like Rebecca Yarros really like pussied out of like killing anyone significant in this book. I was so sure someone significant would die like in every book. And we almost got that. We got a bit of a fake out with Mira, and I was like, oh, no, like it's too soon for her to die. Like, we need more drama. She can die at the end of like 5 books, but I think we still need her around. There's still like, you know, she has to help find the answers for Violet and stuff. So you know, I'm glad she didn't die, but would have been more emotional if she had. We had a fake out with Tern. That was obviously not going to happen, but I'm concerned it might happen at the end of book 5. But we absolutely can't lose either of her dragons until the end. So I kind of knew that was going to happen, and I was concerned that like Riddick or Bodhi or Garrick or someone might die. We did have a fake out with Riddick and a fake out with Garrick. Riddick kind of got shot and Garrick got poisoned, but it was okay in the end. Riddick got shot in the last book as well and got saved. I bet he's going to get shot and killed at some point for real. And all these fake outs will be like foreshadowing. But yeah, we should know them better than we do, like I've said. But we don't know them that well yet, and I think we still need our core Brienne, Riddick, Sawyer friendship group to the end of the books. I think we could afford to lose one in book 4 and lose the others in book 5, but I think this book wasn't the one for us to lose them. There's still time. They still need to do some cool things. They need to I need to get to know them, first of all, and learn to care about them a bit more, and then they can die, and that will be sad. This is what I want. I just want tragedy. I think tragedy in these kind of books like brings the stakes and brings the excitement. And I did have excitement because I was scared that they would all die and like anyone could die, but then they didn't. So I'm glad for them, but also like, okay, at the end of the book, like, you know, don't leave feeling like that emotional. I think her losing Andarna for a little bit was quite emotional and a bit gutting, but we got her back at the end, and it was quite obvious that other Erid dragon had been the one to cut the bond and not Andarna, so I didn't feel like betrayed by Andarna at all. Got a lot of questions about like where she was in interim. I'm sure we'll get answers in the next book. But yeah, she just kind of shows up at the end, and I think she could have left that out and just had her come back in the next book and like left us with a question of like, where is Andarna and what's she doing? I think this whole twist with the Irids and how they're kind of pacifists and they're kind of disappointed in the rest of the Empyrean and in Andarna for kind of becoming one of them is interesting. They're kind of hinting that like love is the answer, and that maybe we can cure the venom with love, with their offspring, which kind of suggests that Xaden and Violet might have a child, and that might be the answer, that might be the cure. It would be interesting to see like how the Irids come back into the story at some point. It did feel a bit disappointing to like go to all of these Isle Kingdoms looking for the Irids, but they didn't really think about what would happen when they actually found them, which is kind of a bullshit thing to write. But anyway, and then they did find them and they didn't know what to do, and they just weren't impressed, and that was a bit of a disappointment. Kind of made all of that time in the Isle Kingdoms and the whole book basically feel a bit pointless, because I don't feel like we are anywhere different by the end of the book than where we were at the start. Like, we don't have that many more answers. We've got a few, but not that many, and Xaden predictably has not been saved and has gone pretty much 98% full venom. I think the little bit of the soul that remains is in the stone, in the ring that Violet is wearing this wedding ring that they obviously got married at this Temple of Doom. It seems like Xaden and his new brothers, whoever they could be Bodhi or Garrick or Riddick. I think, a lot of people think Bodhi seems most likely, but could be either of the others as well. They've clearly taken some dragon eggs and they've maybe gone to the Isle of Dun to escape the magic of the ground, because it's easier to be a Venin in Isle Kingdoms, and to thank Dune for marrying them and all of that stuff. And I think Xaden has cut the bond between him and Violet, and maybe Scale has cut the bond with Tern and she's gone with Xaden, and that's why Tern is having to sleep at the end of the novel. And obviously this was all like so emotional for Violet that she's had Imogen wipe her memory. So like we do have a bit of a shocking ending, but it doesn't feel quite as like, I need to know what happens next. I'm kind of like, that seems to be what's happened. There's like a missing 12 hours, but I can kind of piece it together. I don't really need it spelled out for me, which is good, because we're going to have to wait for like a good year and a half for the next book, I think. So I feel kind of at peace. I don't need all the answers right now. I'm looking forward to getting answers in the next one, but I'm happy to wait as well. Not quite as tense as the ending of Iron Flame. I think it was a cool reveal that Violet's silver hair has something to do with her being like committed to Dun, or like partially committed to Dun. I don't really understand the whole like, oh, if you're fully committed then you will turn Venin. If you I don't know what the condition is that you might turn Venin, but don't understand that. Hoping for more answers in the next book. It could be I've just forgotten, in like the 2 weeks since has passed since I finished reading it, or 1 week. I feel like it should be easier to remember these things, and that might reflect the quality of the writing and the explanation. And I think the twist that she's a dream walker is cool. I think that was hinted at a lot in Iron Flame as well, but you just assumed it was because of the bond with Xaden. I think she will still be able to connect with Xaden via these dreams, and that we'll get probably like some smut scenes in her dream to fuel the people that really like the romance and like the smut over the kind of high fantasy aspects of the story. Dare I would say that this is a really dangerous gift that Andarna's given her. At the moment she's just kind of going in and watching dreams, but I think she can affect the dreams, and I wonder if this can affect the future potentially. Interesting to see how this develops. I think it's cool that Arik is precognitive as his signet power, and I'm also interested to find out like what Bodhi's second signet is, and what some of the other people in the rebellion have as their second signets. Rebecca Yarros said in an interview about the fact that all of these guys have second signets, and about the fact that the dragons are actually bonding within the family line, which they're not supposed to do, but they're covering this up by lying when they give their name, so that people in the college don't know that they're bonding family members. I thought that was really interesting that the dragons are lying. Obviously the Empyrean, they're kind of their own society, and they've got their own politics and their own agenda. This whole idea of dragons lying and manipulating the people makes a lot of sense. It kind of answers like why they would team up with humans in the first place. I feel like dragons are kind of like the real rulers of this place. I'm excited to see what kind of twists and turns related to this might come up later in the series. Violet's dad kind of said not to trust anyone except Mira, and not to trust Dane if he'd chosen to go over to the Riders' Quadrant and follow in his father's footsteps. This kind of suggests that maybe he's aware of some corruption within the Empyrean, although it doesn't explain like his love for his wife and his trust for Mira when Mira's chosen to go and bond with dragons, and so is his wife. So I'm not sure if that reflects his mistrust in dragons or just in Atos, Dane's father. It's unclear, but I think some twists involving the dragons being not all they're cracked up to be would be really cool for this series, and it would make sense why it was actually called the Empyrean series, because otherwise it's not really that heavily about the Empyrean at the moment. The Empyrean is there and there's dragons, but the plot, apart from this romance plot, is mainly about the Venin and fighting the Venin. This concept that the Venin might not be all 100% evil, and that the dragons could potentially be more morally grey is interesting. However, the fact that the Irids, equally, if not more, dislike the Venin, and they dislike the Empyrean, I don't know. I think the Venin still seem like fairly black and white evil, and the Empyrean more morally grey and corrupt. Unsure. And if the Venin are like so obviously evil and the Irids hate them, I don't see why they've got such a bee in their bonnet about, the Navarians and the Empyrean fighting back against the Venin. It seems like they're a little bit anti-human and anti-dragon, and they just want everyone to like wipe themselves out. Everyone should just die. The world can just like all turn grey, and then it will gradually regenerate once everyone is dead. That seems to be what the Irids want, which I don't think is like a very good answer either. It's a bit like hoping for an apocalypse where all the humans on the planet die just so that the planet can keep on living. It's just a bit like, well, fuck everyone then, I guess. Like, what are we even fighting for then? Don't know. It'd be interesting to see what the Irids suggest everyone should do instead. They've clearly just fucked off to the island kingdoms and are just not going to help anyone and just like live on their own. Fair enough, I guess. Let's talk a little bit more about the island kingdoms. We went to a lot of them, can't remember all of them like by name. She didn't include them on the map. Like, why would you not include them on the main map in the book when you're going to spend like a third of the whole middle portion of the book on these bloody islands? No wonder readers are confused. And also the gods, it was good to like learn a bit more about all of the different gods and the cultures that follow them, but I don't think we got like a lot of idea about the culture. I don't think the world around it was built that thoroughly. I also completely forgot like what the god Amari was, which is what they all follow on the continent, the Amarians or whatever they called them. Looked it up. Amari's just like the queen of the gods, or like the goddess of the gods. Don't know what that means. I suppose maybe it's not that important, but I don't know what she does. Maybe it will become relevant, who knows. We had some theories confirmed from the last books of, Xaden turning Venin kind of introduces this concept that anyone could be Venin, and it seems that, you can trust no one, and that there might be a lot of different Venin that are hiding it at the college. That's a cool idea that I guess we'll explore in future books. Didn't really come to much in this book, although we did see another student turn and then get killed for it during like a challenge. One little critique I had, or observation, the other books were very much about the college. Like Fourth Wing is about her first year at the college, and so we show, a lot of the challenges at the college and bonding the dragons and graduating at the end, or graduating at the start of Iron Flame, or not graduating but finishing the year and Xaden graduates. Iron Flame, we get some of that as well. It's like the first half of second year, and so she goes through the interrogation stuff. She does the RSC kind of land navigation stuff. They do more flight maneuvers, and then they go to Arisha and they do runes, and she starts to like do her signet and stuff. In Onyx Storm we get a lot less of the college. We get a little bit of it. She does a little bit of runes at Arisha just before the end. She does no more interrogation. She does no more RSC. There's like one lesson where they do some flight maneuvers, and there is some patrols they do. Like there's a little bit more active fighting because they're kind of in active war, so I guess that takes precedent over the lessons. There's a little battle brief, and what else? There's the kind of signet sparring class that Xaden teaches. That's kind of the only bit we get, and that's also a new class. It's not normally in second year. It just seems like necessary and something they need. Something else they changed about the college, they changed the kind of rules around killing each other. So that was a critique a lot of people had about Fourth Wing. It's like, it's stupid that they are training an army but they're all allowed to kill each other. They've kind of addressed that by saying, yeah, actually, now we're in active war. They were always in active war. But now, we're honest about the war that we're in, and it's against the Venin. We're going to stop doing that. So that's good, but they probably shouldn't have been doing that from the start. I think she just had that as a plot device in Fourth Wing to make it like, ooh, more interesting, more like the Hunger Games. But yeah, apart from that, we didn't get a lot of college because Violet goes on active duty, and then she goes on this quest, then she comes back, and then they're basically like in a Venin battle pretty quickly. And so she should be kind of just about finishing up second year. I actually don't know what time of year it is or how close to like second year graduation they are, but yeah, who knows what's going on with her schooling and her qualification. I feel like this book should have tied up second year so that the next two books are like third year, and by the end of the book we're graduating from the college, or maybe fourth book we could graduate from the college and fifth book is kind of like Harry Potter, where we're out of school and we're out in the world, but somehow we still return to Hogwarts and still, you know, have the final battle there. Well, we've already had a Basgiath battle, so I wonder if we'll have another one. Might start to feel a bit repetitive. All I'm saying is this like war college aspect that made Fourth Wing so compelling to people has kind of been lost in favour of the wider Venom plot. I like the wider Venom plot, but I think we kind of need both. I think Harry Potter does this really well, where each book is a different year of school and we follow a lot of school and we follow like, you know, the exams and the stuff that goes on at the school, but we also have this broader plot that also gets tied up at the end. Yes, it's a little unrealistic that, you know, each new crisis is wrapped up nicely within a school year, but it's also great from a narrative novel film standpoint. So I think this book needed a little bit more college. Finally, let's talk Violet and Xaden. Much preferred their relationship in this book. They are a lot less toxic, even though they're still a bit like, oh, we're so toxic, aren't we so cool? Being toxic isn't cool, guys. And I like that they were less toxic in this book. I like that he's shifted from calling her violence all the time to love, which is sweet. I like that they are genuinely connecting, but also having this struggle of him turning into a Venom. It was a bit Twilight-like he's scared of turning and he's scared of like hurting her, which I think is like kind of a cool trope. I think we could have done without the plot device of like he's a teacher and now their romance is forbidden. I think that was just like forcing them apart for no reason. Didn't feel like a lot of peril, because I was like, well, they're committed and they're in a pretty serious relationship, so just because they can't like kiss at school doesn't mean like that they're not in a relationship or that the relationship's over. Like, it's really not a big deal. And then they just went to the Isle Kingdoms anyway and they, you know, had a relationship and it was fine. So we didn't need that. That was just like a little bit silly. Makes sense that students wouldn't be allowed to be with teachers, but like surely if the relationship pre-exists the teaching role and their age gap is like not ridiculous, they're like 2 years apart, it's not really a power dynamic issue, and I feel like they could have just made an allowance. It didn't have to be a big deal. Obviously Atos kind of just did it to be annoying, and it was annoying. Honestly, I think we had enough keeping them apart with the whole Venom thing. We didn't really need more, but I guess it's like fun for a little bit of low stakes drama. I think that's pretty much all my thoughts. Writing quality wise, I think it was the same as the other books. I think maybe it was slightly better. Like, I didn't notice any moments where I rolled my eyes at it, whereas I did in the other book. There was a little bit less of Violet constantly talking about how sexy he was and like reveling in Xaden's appearance. There was a bit more of an emotional connection. There was still some cringy and like very contemporary like dialogue. Like, I think multiple times Xaden was like, well, the fuck aware. And it was a bit like, oh, so edgy, he can swear. Felt a little bit like a Marvel film with like a little bit of a naughty quip, like the F-bomb of the book. I think we could have done without it. I think there's a lot of things about this book and the writing is like very contemporary. I've seen another reviewer point out about the months and how like she talks about flying in January and how the Roman calendar just wouldn't be used in this kind of alternate fantasy world. And I think that's a fair point. I think she could world build a little bit more by taking these very obvious like months of the year and making them a little bit more tailored to that world and not to our world. I guess it is supposed to be like really accessible fantasy. I think it can still be accessible fantasy and have a little bit more thought into it as well. But maybe the readers that like that these things are consistent with their own world actually appreciate that they don't have to think too much about this new world. I mean, I'm not a big fantasy reader and I do kind of look at this as a slightly contemporary kind of fantasy anyway. So personally, it didn't really bother me until someone pointed it out. Anyway, let me know what you thought of Onyx Storm, which twists and which like reveals really had you gagged, made you excited, what questions and theories you have about upcoming novels. I'd love to hear any of your theories. And did you have fun? Did you enjoy this book? Did you find it disappointing? I personally didn't find it disappointing. I had fun. It just kind of is what it is. I'm not looking at it too critically. I think it's nice to just have fun reading like an exciting plot sometimes without being overly critical. And the flaws of the book don't hinder my enjoyment at the end of the day, whereas with some other books, the flaws are enough to drive me mad and make me hate it and not want to read on. Everyone's different, everyone's got different standards and preferences and things they can look past and things they can't. Oh, and I'm not addressing any of the scandals that other people are referencing with Rebecca Yarros and like her opinion on Palestine or her opinion on like militarism. Obviously she's a military wife, and people say she's really pro-military. I think she kind of critiques the violence and the military a bit and tries to do that in this novel. Maybe she does it poorly. I don't know, I haven't actually seen the comments she's made. Maybe I'll change my mind once I've seen those comments. Don't know. I'm not sure what people were talking about. I need to do my own research. So when I say I can overlook certain things to enjoy a book, that's not what I'm referencing. I actually just don't know what her comments were. I think for the most part I'd rather just like let the author have the political opinions that they have and like look at the book as a separate thing. Maybe except from Neil Gaiman, because he does seem like a genuine abuser. But that's a topic for another video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I put out new videos every Tuesday. I like to do spoilery reviews and kind of discussions about the books I read. Really dig into the themes and the topics and what actually happened in the book. Also look at the writing and things like that as well when I want to. I read all different kinds of books, so there's probably something for everyone. And I'll also occasionally do some videos about my writing and some updates about that. Because if you don't know, I'm writing my own book and I'm hoping to finish the first draft by the end of this year. If that all sounds good to you, please subscribe. Thanks for watching, bye!